our first reader, was born in Charleston, South Carolina, and he spent his formative years there, which is reflected in the many of the mistakes he has made in his life. For instance, he likes to point out that he was both a right-wing Republican and an evangelical Christian at the same time, which, I gotta be honest, doesn't sound all that contradictory to me, but maybe I'm wrong. Seeking adventure and a change of scenery, he joined the Marine Corps after college and got both of those things. But most importantly, he gained an appreciation for the heights and depths of the human experience, which has shaped some of his worldview. Please welcome back to Tuesday Funk, Norman Doucet.
Andrew, thank you for leaving out the part where I made shit up for work, because I've got a client here, so appreciate that.
Yep.
So thanks, Eden, thanks, Andrew, for this opportunity again, and I'll just kind of jump right in. On Wednesday, September 16th, 1981, at Caesar's Palace in Las Vegas, one of the best boxing matches in history was fought. Dubbed the Showdown, it pitted two of the most iconic fighters at the time, Sugar Ray Leonard and Tommy the Hitman Hearns, respective world welterweight champions, in a contest to unify the title. They fought before a live crowd of 23,618 people and a worldwide TV audience of some 300 million. Think about that, that's 1981. The fight lived up to expectations, becoming a back-and-forth duel between the two fighters until the 14th round. After staggering Hearns with an overhand right, Leonard pinned Hearns against the ropes, where he unleashed a furious combination, prompting the referee to stop the contest and awarding Sugar Ray Leonard the Unified World Welterweight Championship. On a warm, sunny morning, 3 days and over 2,200 miles removed from that evening, Norman, aka the Bumblebee, Doucet, sat eagerly at the living room coffee table, Batman footy pajamas on, Lucky Charms in a bowl, spoon at the ready, pressing his mom to fire up the TV and turn on HBO. I had not seen the fight that Wednesday evening due to homework and bedtime, but I knew that I would see the replay on Saturday morning. And this wasn't my first rodeo, so everyone knew to keep the results for me until I had seen it for myself. And, as this wasn't my first rodeo, I expected the same experience as the many times I'd experienced this before. It would be a raucous event, with lots of gesticulating, yelling, screaming, and perhaps joyous crying if my hero, Sugar Ray, won the fight. I would have this experience in the solitude of the living room, as my mom did her Saturday morning extended bath with adult beverages upstairs. Other than some spilled cereal and milk, it would be a joyous affair, followed by a lazy, cartoon, fried food, and family-filled Saturday. What I did not realize at the time, as my mom gave me her pre-fight safety briefing, was this would be no ordinary Saturday. Something was different, something special and precious, and it was not Blondell's darling only child. It was a coffee table. The very table at which I sat in my Batman footies, cereal in the bowl, spoon in hand, waiting for the milk in my mom's hand to pour over the bowl, fueling my anxious Sugar Ray Leonard title fight viewing. But first, that safety brief. They were generally to the point and underscored with threats about being too loud and spilling cereal and milk. This one was different. There was none of that. It was all about the table. My stepdad, who was at the time an assistant to the biggest customs broker in Charleston, South Carolina, had secured this table from Italy. It was a glorious coffee table with a highly polished silver frame and a smoked glass table insert. It was, I was told, a rarity. James had called in a big favor from the boss man to get one for my mom, and as she hurled threats at me, she said that all of the other tables of this kind could only be found in the mansions in the city. The last words she said to me that morning were, and I quote, "I know you're going to get excited, and if you do, you're going to pop up from your seat and break this table. And boy, if you break this table, so help me God, I will break both feet and both hands off in your little ass." As a very good son, I paid attention to my mom's safety briefs, so I understood at the time what the consequences would be for scratching, or heaven forbid, damaging the Italian smoked glass table. What I did not understand at the time was my mother's diagnosed mental health issues or her uncontrollable rage, which I had not yet witnessed firsthand. I really blamed Sugar Ray, and I contemplated writing him a letter years later. As billed, this fight was truly epic. As I watched the first 4 rounds unfold, I was extremely disheartened and irritated by Sugar Ray's inability to land any blows on the hitman. Further enraging me was a big cut that Sugar Ray sustained to his left eye in the 5th round. This Hearn strike to the face of my hero resulted in me screaming something like, "Come on, Sugar Ray!" and causing me to stand up from the table, as my mom had predicted. Time slowed down for me as my knees jolted the glass from its supports, tilting it so that when it came back down, it fell sideways through the shiny frame onto the floor, shattering it into pieces. I froze for a moment, long enough to hear my mom bellowing from the bathtub. "What in the hell was that?" I stayed frozen in place, Lucky Charms, milk, and broken glass glued to my footies. I didn't answer, couldn't answer. She yelled the question again and then again, and I heard a tone from her that I had never heard before. It was murderous. I heard the water sloshing around, and I pictured my mom hustling out of the tub in a blind rage to come down and lay her vengeance upon me. In that moment, I knew I had to get the fuck out. So I ran to the pantry off the kitchen, grabbed my bike, unlocked the back door, and pedaled out of there to what I knew would be a sanctuary, Grandma's house. Mama, or Big Mama, as she was known to her closest friends, was not generally known as a compassionate or kind woman to her children or my cousins. But unlike them, I was special. As I vigorously pedaled to her house, I only focused on getting there before my mom did. I had a pretty healthy start, as she would have to dry herself off, get dressed, get to the car, and head to Mama's. She knew that is where I would be headed. Not great news, but I knew I'd beat her, and I did. I arrived at Mama's house and would have pedaled through the door, but I dropped the bike, ran to the door, and rang the doorbell 1,000 times it seemed before she answered. Mama took one look at me and only spoke the following words: "Go upstairs, change, and stay upstairs." I ran up the stairs in what must have been less than 6 leaps, and she had really tall stairs, and went straight to the balcony in her room overlooking the driveway, my eyes scanning the street for the powder blue Buick Regal that would inevitably be rounding the corner. I didn't have to wait long. My mom's car rounded the corner with amazing speed, burning rubber and screeching its way to the driveway. I found this disconcerting because my mom was generally a very careful and slow driver. She flung the driver's side door open and leaped out of the car, leaving the door agape, and sprinting to Mama's door, also ringing the doorbell for what must have been 1,000 times. But unlike my visit, because I was special, Mama made Mommy wait, and that didn't sit well with Blondell, who began cursing and screaming for her mom to open the fucking door now. This was also disconcerting because no one, and I mean no one, used profanity in Mama's presence. It was also very interesting that my mom hadn't looked up at the balcony. I was in plain sight, but she was hyper-focused on that door. Mama slowly opened the door and exposed herself, filling the door frame, preventing any entrance by my mom. This was going to be a title fight in and of itself. A fight for my life. In reality, it was no contest. Mama girded herself amidst insults and accusations of harboring and protecting the snotty, entitled little shit from his due punishment of being beaten to death in a dark, dank room in Mom's house because he had broken her precious Italian table that proved to her that she had some worth in the class system of Charleston. Now, back to that bout that caused us all. There was an iconic quote from the Leonard Hearns fight uttered by Sugar Ray's trainer between rounds 12 and 13. Hearns was clearly winning the fight at that point, and in the corner, as the crew worked on Sugar's face and squirted water in his mouth, Angelo Dundee shouted to him, "You're blowing it now, son! You're blowing it!" Another iconic quote was uttered on that fateful Saturday morning one that stays with me to this day. One that has been the source of laughs for me and my friends, Marines, and colleagues all over the world when I tell the story. One that was a refrain as I jumped out of an airplane with 40 of my colleagues into the unknown once over a strange land that each of us said before we leapt out into the black night. That quote, "Bring me the boy." My mom repeated that over and over to Grandma. Bring me the boy. Who stood unimpressed with the vitriolic display and repeated her own words. "Blondell, go home. Blondell, go home. Blondell, go home before I have to beat you in front of your son." That last one prompted my mom to take a step back down the stairs, at which point she looked up at the balcony and just pointed at me with this, Okay, this next part is in dispute. But I did look down at my mom, my life saved for the moment, and smiled the biggest smile I had smiled in my life at that point. Dejected, my mom scampered away, talking and cursing to herself, getting into her car and screeching away. Big Mama had saved the day, but not the war. The real unsung hero of this story is my stepdad, James, who rolled to Mama's house several hours later with a suitcase in his hand. He came in, gave me a hug, told me not to worry about my mom, but that I'd have to spend an extended period of time at Mama's house until things cooled down a bit. Now, James at the time was my mom's boyfriend, because as a proper Southern woman, she couldn't get married to him or live with him until I was an adult. Now that sounds crazy, but that was my mom and the South. And the only time in my childhood that I remember James spending the night at my house was for 4 days after the incident, where he stayed nights only. He slept in my room those nights, and after several long talks with my mom and a reordering of the glass, although she never got the smoke glass anymore, it was discontinued, he gave the all clear. I spent the first night alone with my mom with books and toys blocking my bedroom door so that I would have a little advance warning if she decided to come in and exact her revenge. Nothing ever happened except for some recurring nightmares for several years. I had a couple of years here, it's actually like 10 years. The last time I saw my grandmother, mother, and stepdad alive, respectively, we recounted that story to laughs. My mom's mental health issues have become a comedic story, and we enjoy telling it together sometimes as well. That story encapsulates the narrative of my childhood and of the three most important characters in it, all whom serve to impress upon me the skills, temperament, and values that have carried me all around the world and that have given me the strength to persevere and the empathy to connect with others. They're all gone now in a span of a year, and I've had to bury all of them. My big three are physically no more, but they live on in me and all whom I encounter. And now, Bring Me the Boy lives on in all of you.